dreams are coming true. I choose the light, nothing to lose if I lose you. New day will everyone cries, don't cry. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but we will stay, even if you say goodbye. Même si tu dis adieu, tu ne partiras jamais. Mon ton ciel, ton ciel bleu. Mais couleurs dans le cri, l'amour se souhaite sous un ciel tard, un rayon de ma journée. La seule chanson que mon piano peut jouer. Don't cry alone. Darkness will fall, and the pain will go on. But even as you say. Welcome everyone. My name is Soraya Dean. On behalf of the Muslim women speakers, this is our Friday forum. Can we clear that thing out of the screen if we can, Elena, for now? Okay, so today we have an important topic, a topic you have heard a lot of reaction to, not reflection, a topic you have heard where our own country, the United States, is blamed when the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado, reminds us, she asked us, we need to speak up, to speak out, and to stand beside the people of Venezuela. So today we are going to have a guest who is going to tell us about Venezuela. What happened in Venezuela? Why did Venezuela come to where it is now? And she and her family lived, I believe, under Chavez and Maduro. And we have questions, and that guest today is my dear friend and partner in crime, Astrid Hajar. Astrid is a Maronite Lebanese Venezuelan professional and a Boston University trained lawyer with a master's degree in international banking law. She holds a certificate in international relations, women, peace and security from the Harvard Extension School. She's the co-founder of the Abraham Women's Alliance and director of international partnerships with Empower Women Media. Astrid freely gives her time to coordinate executive briefings to develop religious freedom advocates for the workplace in the MENA region. She's highly connected to government and business leaders in the US, Middle East, and Gulf region. She regularly relates to the leaders of the Abraham Accords and movement and is a strategic door opener. Much has happened, Astrid. We will have some questions for you, but you had told me that you have a PowerPoint to share with the people, so you bring them up to date as to what has happened and what is happening in Venezuela. So this program, to the listeners, I might say, will be in 3 parts. Astrid is going to present, and then we're going to have questions. And then in the 3rd segment, we will ask our listeners if they have questions. Because before giving it over to Astrid, I want to impress upon everyone. Today we are under a new world order, under American leadership and under the leadership of President Donald Trump. What the world didn't do was when Russia invaded Ukraine, we were quiet. When China eyes Taiwan, we are quiet. And I'm told that President Donald Trump and his team spoke to Maduro and gave him an opportunity that he didn't take. And thereafter, the president didn't act unilaterally. The courts in our country gave an order for the arrest of Maduro. And that order was executed. And it was executed not on a benign leadership. We all know that the Hezbollah is operating, running drug cartels in Latin America. And we know the alliances of Maduro's government to China and Russia. And everything is geared at destabilizing country. And we have a strong message to the world moving forward as Muslim women. America will stand up for it, for everything that is right, as it has done so far. And we stand behind our government unequivocally. So, Astrid, over to you. Tell us, Astrid, what happened, what is happening, and what the future looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya, for that kind and generous introduction. I've known Soraya and Anila now for a while, and it's been a pleasure for me to be able to work with them with the same cause, interfaith dialogue throughout the world. We've met in conferences in different places around the world, and I really admire the work that you're both doing. My name is, as Soraya said, my name is Astrid Hajar. I'm the co-founder of the Abram Women's Alliance, an organization that was founded exactly 1 month after the terrible October 7 attacks. And since then, we've hosted conferences internationally, Dubai, Marrakesh, Washington, D.C., United Nations, and Abram Women's Alliance is a division of Empower Women Media, an organization founded by Shireen Tabor. The Empower Women Media has also educated over 10,000 in interfaith matters, over 10,000 people in different areas, Africa, the Middle East. They have produced educational interfaith videos. And Empower Women Media has also produced over 150 short films on the same subject of interfaith dialogue and collaboration. So thank you, Soraya, for this wonderful opportunity. As Soraya mentioned, I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. My parents were born in the mountains of Lebanon, so I grew up between Lebanon and Caracas. And I love both countries, and I have a deep understanding of both countries because I lived in both and I grew up in both. And when Soraya asked me to talk about Venezuela, I seized on this wonderful opportunity because I received dozens of phone calls of people that still cannot understand what's going on with Maduro, Venezuela, whether Trump is stealing Venezuelan oil or the lack of sovereignty in Venezuela. So I decided to prepare a PowerPoint presentation for all of you because it's such a complex, multi-dimensional matter that even in 2-3 hours, it's hard to explain. So visually, I thought, which is what we do, Empower Women Media and the Abram Women Alliance, I decided to prepare this PowerPoint presentation. And I would like to start with who was Hugo Chavez? Because remember, before Maduro, there was a dictator in Venezuela. His name was Hugo Chavez, and Hugo Chavez was the person that began relationships with the mullahs in Iran. So Hugo Chavez was a Venezuelan soldier and a politician who served as president of Venezuela from 1999 until 2013. He led a socialist movement called the Bolivarian Revolution. And I'm going to show right now, I'm going to share with all of you the first, can you see the first slide here? Perfect. So Hugo Chavez was born in 1954. He died of cancer in 2013. He led the socialist movement called the Bolivarian Revolution, which developed into the Foro de Sao Paulo, which was the reunion of several leftist governments in Latin America. He sort of brought them, he started bringing them all together. He wanted to unify all of Latin America under socialism, Marxism, and communism, basically. He used the wealth of social programs to support leftist governments in Latin America. The Venezuela sits over the largest crude oil reserves in the world, even more than Saudi Arabia. And Venezuelans never saw any of that money because the money was used to promote leftist and terrorist actions all over the world. I would say that Chavez was the person that advanced what it's called today social 21st century socialism. So he rose to power. He was an army lieutenant colonel. Chavez gained prominence after the failed 1992 coup d'etat, and later he formed a political movement and winning the presidency in 1998. Now, Chavez died in 2013, as I said, and he brought to Latin America what is considered, as I said, the 21st century socialism. He was inspired by Cuba's Castro and the Iranian mullahs regime. His first action was to nationalize the agriculture sector and to take over nationalize also the oil industry as well. A previous president also started the process for that. Iran and Venezuela have had diplomatic and commercial relationships since before Iran's 1979 revolution. Venezuela and Iran were founding members of the OPEC, and under Chavez, this relationship expanded beyond the oil industry. The two countries signed an estimated 300 agreements of varying importance and value. According to the Center of Strategy and International Studies, by 2012, Iran's investments and loans in Venezuela were valued at 15 billion, which multiplied after with the arrival of Maduro. So these were reportedly used to finance illicit activities. For Iran, Venezuela became a geopolitical paradise for diplomatic and commercial expansion into Latin America. Iran's proxy, Hezbollah, has close ties with Maduro, which had led to drug trafficking and illegal gold mining efforts in Venezuela. The Amazon forest, the most beautiful area, one of the most beautiful areas in Venezuela, unfortunately has been the victim of illegal mining in the area. So I want to show you, this is a very complex here graphic, but it's just a fraction of what Chavez and Maduro regime have been able to accomplish, okay? So Hezbollah grew from the Lebanese war in 1975 and 1990 and has emerged as a political party in Lebanon. Over the last 40 years, it has established a worldwide network of supporters, fundraising, and training camps. Hezbollah took advantage of Lebanon's diaspora in Venezuela and the solidarity between the Venezuelans, specifically in Central and South America, where 9 million Lebanese are estimated to live. Over the past 2 decades, investigations have uncovered numerous terrorist plots planned and executed in Latin America, including the bomb in Argentina, the AMIA Center in Argentina, and other attacks as well. The numerous terrorist plots were executed in Latin America. They were planned in Latin America, and then while many analysts concentrated on terrorist activities in the Middle East, the fundamental role that Latin America has played geographically has been glossed over. Latin America became a geopolitical paradise for Hezbollah's illicit activities and expansion. Maduro's allies, Russia, China, Cuba, and Iran, through its proxy Hezbollah, continue to throw a lifeline to Maduro's regime. Now, we call this convergence. The convergence of transnational threats in Latin America, especially in Venezuela, has resulted in the worst humanitarian crisis in the Western Hemisphere, with over 8 million Venezuelans leaving Venezuela. And this is after the Sudan refugee crisis as well. So the Chavismo in Venezuela is involved in terrorist actions, money laundering, and drug trafficking by working hand in hand with Iran and Hezbollah. It's, as you can see, it's a very complex activities. There are very complex activities that are taking place. But more concerning than all of this, and this is something that a lot of people, Soraya and Anila, don't know, is that Maduro gave the Iranian government a piece of land in Venezuela so that they can operate. Venezuela is the only country in Latin America that is in possession of Iranian armed drones. No other country in Latin America is in possession of Iranian armed drones. And let's not forget that the geopolitical location of Venezuela very close to the southern coast of the United States. So it's everything that I'm exposing at this point is an issue of national security for the a serious matter of national security for the United States. But more concerning than individual weapons transfers is Iran's decision to outsource drone production to Venezuela, which I mentioned. Manufacturing facilities now exist on Venezuela's territory capable of producing offensive drones domestically. And this doesn't happen in other countries in the Americas. This represents permanent Iranian military industrial presence in the Western Hemisphere, not temporary weapon sale like many people say in the news. An October 2020 IRGC cargo flight from Tehran to Caracas was met by approximately 10 container trucks and 40 personnel upon landing. Then State Department official Elliot Abrams warned that the transfer of long-range missiles from Iran to Venezuela is not acceptable to the United States. As I said, it's a matter of national security. Hezbollah networks in Venezuela extend beyond weapons to include fundraising, logistics, and operational planning infrastructure. These networks have operated for years in the tri-border area region of Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, as well in Venezuela's famous Margarita Island, which I consider the headquarters of Hezbollah in the Americas. The concern is not that Hezbollah will disappear if Maduro falls. The concern is that these networks provide Iran with persistent intelligence, financial, and operational capabilities in the Americas. So let me go to the next slide. It's you don't have to read all of this, but I just wanted to give you a general idea for why Iran chose Venezuela and Latin America to settle. Well, Latin America has become a base for Iran's asymmetric attacks on the United States and other Latin American countries, and also a lab and warehouse for the Islamic Republic for many illicit activities of its terror proxy. Now, what you're seeing right now is changing by the minute, by the second. If you watch the news, you see what's taking place in Iran, you see what's taking place in Venezuela. But to me, it was important for the people that is joining the Zoom to be able to understand where everything is coming from, why this is such an important matter for the United States, why the Monroe Doctrine, now they call it the Donroe Doctrine, is so important for U.S. national security and for the security of the entire Western Hemisphere. This is not just Maduro. There's so much more than just Maduro. So you see that Latin America is strategically important, of course. Iran looks to the region as Iran's best weapon against hybrid warfare against the U.S. Also, it is the area of Iran's largest and most successful foreign investment outside the Middle East, which include money laundering, illicit narco sales, weaponry, and the convergence with other groups like cartels, like the ELN and the FARC in Colombia. This is a very complex. I mean, I hope you guys are having a cup of coffee. Please bring a cup of coffee because you're going to need it. It's a lot of information. You're going to need that caffeine. So, and then the operations in Latin America help Iran evade sanctions and hard currency. But especially, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the ghost fleet that Iran, China, and Russia are operating throughout Latin America as well. So, but it's not just Hezbollah. Venezuela, Maduro and Chavez invited what's called the axis of evil to settle in Venezuela, to operate in Venezuela, whether it's with Hezbollah or the Wagner forces or Chinese investment at different levels. Or the takeover of the oil industry and destruction of the oil industry, unfortunately, in Venezuela. But the Russians are also in Venezuela. So the operation of the Russians, as you can see, is multifaceted. It includes social media. It includes all sorts of indoctrinations through media, YouTube, Twitter, Telegram, and it's all pro-Russian regime propaganda, of course. And the Russians are very good at it. So Russia is establishing military infrastructure, training networks, and operational familiarity and the America's strategic backyard. Again, this is a matter of national security also for the United States. It's not that one day President Trump woke up and Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hetzek woke up and said, okay, we're going to invade Venezuela. That's not the way it works. It's much more than that. It's the presence of foreign forces that are the biggest and most relevant enemies to the United States and to the United States national security. So the next slide shows, shows China's Belt and Road Initiative in Latin America. And what I'm showing you, of course, is a fraction of what's really taking place. China is very interested in precious minerals in Venezuela, especially lithium. There's one of the largest concentrations of lithium is in the tri-state area. And also, they're not only interested in lithium, but they're also interested in illicit fishing. They have sent for years a massive fishing fleet. Excuse me, that should be fleet, not feet. to Latin America. The Argentinian government recently deployed their military to find out exactly what these 300 fishing vessels are doing in South America, depleting our oceans in South America of our fish. And it's affecting the local economies. It's affecting in so many ways the fishing industry in Latin America. Also, they're building some of the largest ports in the world in Latin America. Let me go back to lithium. Um, China has invested billions of dollars in the last 20 years in Latin America, trying to take over a lot of the most important industries in the region, which again is part of the China's Belt and Road Initiative. They also are in possession of very important land around the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is a very strategic location for the Western Hemisphere, for the security of the Western Hemisphere and the United States. President Trump has taken the right measures by taking over the Panama Canal so that we don't have this issue with China and other enemies of the United States. And there's something else that a lot of people don't know, which is that China also, under the government of Cristina Kirchner, Cristina Kirchner was one of Chavez's biggest collaborators and supporters. Cristina Kirchner is not in power anymore, gratefully. It's President Milei right now, but under Cristina Kirchner and her husband, China, a piece of land was given in the Patagonia to China, where China has built a surveillance center. They call it, well, most people call it a spy center, which is still there and is currently in Patagonia. So let me go to our next best friend here, which is Cuba. So here we have these two sweethearts sitting together having coffee with the pink flowers in the middle. These are one of the two most repressive and dictators in the history of the Western Hemisphere. One is Nicolas Maduro, and the other one is Díaz-Canel. So let's start with repression, killing, and torture. How was Maduro able to remain in power? Well, guess what? Cuba might not have the oil, Cuba might not have the resources, but Cuba has the intelligence. Cuba has one of the most advanced and one of the best intelligence services in the world. And they are the ones that basically maintained and kept Maduro in power. When Maduro was extracted by our US military forces from Venezuela, he was protected by exclusively Cuban forces, not Venezuelan. That says a lot, because the Venezuelans don't like Maduro. So not Venezuelans, not Iranians, not Wagner Russian forces. He was only protected by Cuban security forces, okay? So why has been able to stay in power? Because of repression, killing, and torture. Also, the Cuban intelligence and militia forces in exchange for oil, of course, and that's where this ghost fleet comes in, which is, as of today, I believe just 30 minutes ago, I found out that the U.S. government has seized another two of those ghost vessels that are carrying oil throughout the world in an illicit form. A lot of them have been sanctioned as well. So Maduro has also been able to stay in power through stolen elections, 3 of them to be specific, and through a corrupt military that has been restructured in a way that the Venezuelan military is not able to topple Maduro. And this is all Cuban strategy, of course. Also, the extensive illicit drug and gold trade. Maduro is the head, alongside Diosdado Cabello, of the Cartel de los Soles, and they are also protectors, let's say, of the Tren de Aragua, which is a terrorist, which has been designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. government. Also, Maduro there's over 1,000 U.S. prisoners in one of the worst prisons and torture centers, and the largest torture center in Venezuela, which is El Helicoide. As of yesterday, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, promised to release up to 800 prisoners. Well, we haven't seen them yet. Some of the foreigners were released, but not the rest of them. Some of these people have spent 24 years in prison just for opposing the regime. It is a tragic situation. A lot of them are in very rough shape. And we're hoping with the pressure put on by the U.S. government, we'll see those 800 prisoners leaving the Venezuelan brutal torture centers and prisons as well. So, and I want to go back to the shadow fleet, because the shadow fleet is not only run by Iran and Maduro, but also by Russia and China. Everybody is involved in this illicit oil trade industry through the shadow fleets that are being seized as we speak in the Caribbean. So now let's go to our next slide. This is in Spanish, so I'm going to translate to all of you. So what have been the achievements of Nicolás Maduro? Nicolás Maduro has a very impressive record. Let's say there's 36,800 victims of torture and state violence, 18,305 political prisoners, 10,000 extrajudicial executions, 468 assassinations during peaceful protests. Let me make that clear. The photo of the Venezuelans, the courageous Venezuelans that you saw demonstrated, there were hundreds of peaceful demonstrations, and even during peaceful demonstrations, they were shot at. So there's also 400 media organizations that were censored and closed. 90% of the population in Venezuela is extremely poor. Mind you, that Venezuela, before Chavez, before Maduro, was the most stable democracy in Latin America and one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Now, also, Maduro didn't recognize 3 elections. Of course, he made himself the winner of those elections. We know that his modus operandi at this point. And the minimum monthly salary for a Venezuelan is $3. People have been going hungry for years. It's a dire situation. It's very, very unfortunate. So I like to make something clear. The U.S. media, they tend to always invite pundits or American analysts or analysts of other countries, but I don't see a lot of Venezuelans invited to speak about about the situation in Venezuela and the development. It's developing by the minute. But I like for everybody to know that when you hear that Nicolas Maduro is the president of Venezuela, no, Nicolas Maduro was not. Now he's in prison for obvious reasons, but Nicolas Maduro is not the president of Venezuela. We have a legitimate president. His name is Edmundo Gonzalez, with the help of our Nobel Peace Prize winner, 2025 prize winner, recipient, Maria Corina Machado. He was able, in a heroic, unprecedented manner, win the Venezuelan elections by, in a very strategic way, saving the acts that prove which municipality, which state voted for Edmundo Gonzalez to win the election. So what was the result of that last election that Maduro didn't recognize? The result of that last election was that Edmundo Gonzalez won by 37 percentage points over Maduro. And this was that the entire Venezuelan population came down to vote against Maduro on this election. Not the entire, but most of it. And this is our hero, Maria Corina Machado. In the photo, you can see her, our 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. Maria Corina is a hero, is a warrior. She's a mother. She's a friend. She is somebody that has accomplished extraordinary things. She's the most courageous woman I've ever met in the world. In my ever. We love her. We are so proud of her, and we hope that in the near future, as of last night, President Trump said that there will be new elections in Venezuela. We already have a president, but we have to follow the process. Let's say that way. We are so grateful to President Trump, to Secretary Rubio, to Secretary Hetzeg, for the wonderful, wonderful work they're doing for saving Venezuela, for being a hostage to Iran, to Russia, to China, to Maduro, to Chavez in the past. So thank you, President Trump. You will see a lot in the media, but I can assure you that 99.9% of Venezuelans support what President Trump is doing. The other 1% point, they're probably Maduro's circle exclusively, because the rest of us, I can assure you that support what President Trump is doing in Venezuela. And why? So let me go back a little bit. I don't want to hold stay on this point too long, but I think it's very important because a lot of people didn't even know what the Monroe Doctrine was. And it's important for people to know that what the Monroe Doctrine is. It was enacted in 1823, and it warned European powers to stop colonizing or interfering in the Americas. Now, but most importantly, people should know what the Roosevelt corollary is from 1904. And the core idea of it is that the US would intervene in Latin American countries to prevent chronic wrongdoing or instability that might invite European intervention, particularly concerning debts and other issues. But Trump decided to revive the Trump administration decided to revive the Monroe Doctrine, or what is called the Monroe Doctrine. Some people call it like that, or what is called the Trump corollary, which I advise people to take a look if they have a chance. The Trump corollary is a new U.S. foreign policy concept outlined in the Trump administration's December 2025 national security strategy. It explicitly revives and expands upon the 19th century Monroe Doctrine. And it reasserts U.S. primacy in the Western Hemisphere, and it aims to deny non-hemispheric competitors such as China and Russia the ability to position themselves, their forces, or control strategical vital assets in the region. So we can see right here in the case of Venezuela, if you look at the Monroe Doctrine in action, how Maduro was captured and U.S. raid after all blocked to months of escalating military pressure. That is an excellent example of how we protect our Western Hemisphere and how we avoid this and we push away this foreign forces to establish themselves and take advantage of our resources in our own hemisphere. Now, you're going to see this a lot in the media. You're going to see people always tell me, well, Astrid, Trump is invading Venezuela. Well, how about sovereignty? How about the sovereignty of your country? Let me tell you, like Maria Corina very wisely said, Maria Corina Machado, Venezuela was invaded many years ago. It was invaded by the Russians, by the Chinese, by the mullahs, by Erdogan. Let's not forget Erdogan and the illicit gold trade as well. When the international left for 27 years, as you can see, they're not concerned about these foreign forces stealing Venezuelan oil. But when President Trump comes, well, everybody's crying and blaming President Trump. He wants to take Venezuelan sovereignty and he wants to destroy our independence and steal our oil. Well, let me tell you, Venezuelans are welcoming very much the actions that President Trump's Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hetzeg, and John Ratcliffe from CIA as well. John Ratcliffe stays very quiet, but we give him a lot of credit and we thank him for the work that he's doing as well. So as you can see, this is a very complex, multi-dimensional situation. I hope you guys all had your coffee in front of you. And now I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Soraya.
Thank you, Astrid. Maybe we can close the PowerPoint. Thank you very much. You have opened like a Pandora's box, educating and enlightening us on so many facets of this that we really don't know as much as we should. I'm going back to something very personal before we get into all the questions. You said you grew up in Venezuela.
Yes, can you see me now? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, thank you.
And your father had businesses and you all were doing a lot of interfaith work. Do you recall and remember when your family felt this fear? Were you born into the fear or did it happen after?
That's a great question, Soraya. Growing up in Venezuela and a Christian Maronite family, we were certainly very concerned of the presence of Hezbollah, especially in the island of Margarita Island, where my parents and I, when I was little, we used to go on vacation every year. So my parents, of course, my father wouldn't tell me much about it, but I could see the expression of concern on his face. And finally, I understood that there were foreign forces settling in our country, especially in the island, in the Margarita Island. My father when he came. My father was a part of the second wave of Lebanese that came to Venezuela looking for opportunity. He settled in Venezuela in the 1950s with my mother. We were all born there, and the Lebanese are hardworking people. He became a successful businessman. He put himself through law school, even though he didn't have the money. He had to work long hours during the day, and he went to school at night. Even though his Spanish wasn't great, he was fluent in French and Arabic, but not in Spanish. I have the utmost admiration for my father for everything he accomplished as an immigrant to Venezuela, but I could always see his face, his expression of concern, because what he saw taking place in Lebanon was coming to him again, to Venezuela. My father, I like to, if you allow me, Soraya, I like to say a few words about my dad. My dad founded an organization called Free Planet Foundation. He built a huge monument in Venezuela with recycled sidewalks, stone material. It's a big wall, and he designed a sculpture that represented the interfaith, the Abrahamic faiths. It was a big cross with the symbols of the monotheistic religions, and he was a big champion of interfaith dialogue. And I think I got it. I think it's genetic because I got it from him. So I'm very proud of what my father and my parents accomplished in Venezuela. They were hardworking immigrants, and they became very successful, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to mention them.
Beautiful. So, how ironic that your father fled Lebanon, and we have seen what Hezbollah has done in Lebanon, and they come to Venezuela not to sell cookies, but to sell arms and do drug trafficking, right?
You know, we have a saying in Venezuela that if you're Venezuelan Lebanese, if you think you're having a bad day, you think about the Venezuelan Lebanese. We've had this double web of bad luck with this extremist group settling in our countries. So yes, I don't believe me, Soraya, I don't take my freedoms for granted. I think when I open my eyes every morning, I thank God that I live in a free country, and very soon, hopefully, Lebanon and Venezuela will also be free countries, because Venezuela is not 100% free yet. With the head of the snake is being cut off, but the tail is still there. And that includes the Rodriguez brothers, Celia, not Celia, excuse me, Celia is Maduro's wife, but the Rodriguez brothers and Diosdado and Padrino are still there. So there's still work. There's a lot of work to do, but we're getting there. And I thank the U.S., our troops, especially our U.S. troops, God bless them for everything they're doing to preserve freedom and stability in the Western Hemisphere. Venezuelans are incredible. We'll forever be grateful. So thank you.
Right. You know, I have to ask you about Maduro's wife, but I just want to affirm what you said. For immigrants like us, we are so absolutely grateful to this country who has given us all these freedoms. Anila from Pakistan, she always says, this is our land. We are here to build America. But when you look at leaders like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and that whole bandwagon of Council on American Islamic Relationships, all they have come here to do is to bring this country down. Do you think this is emblematic of being a Muslim community or Arabs? What is this? How do you see it as a Christian Lebanese woman?
As a Christian Lebanese community, I've seen as sometimes that even as hybrid warfare, people that are welcome, their doors are open to come to this country, and they take advantage of the system. They take advantage of the democratic infrastructure. They take advantage of the courthouses, of their legal system. They come with a smile on their face, and as soon as they get in power, they want to take over the system. And I think it's an extremist indoctrination issue that these people have. There's so many hardworking patriots that are Muslim in this country, people that are support President Trump, people that support this administration, people that support the values of this country, our Constitution, our U.S. troops. The rule of law, my goodness, that support the rule of law. So it is incomprehensible to me, Soraya, because I lost the countries. I lost Lebanon to Venezuela, and Venezuela to extremist group, to socialism, Marxism, and also Islamism, to especially Lebanon. And I tell you, it is. I don't take, as I said before, I don't take my freedoms for granted. I thank God every day that you and I can sit and have these conversations, that you can have this Zoom. And I commend you and Anila, because you guys are constantly thanking the U.S. for the blessings that the United States, that this beautiful country has given us. And it is incomprehensible to me that people come to this country and do the things they do. So
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. So, I mean, we can talk at length on this. You know, we have a new mayor elected in New York who's a musician. Like Maduro was, he was a bus driver and he played music, and that made him because he was not elected. I'm told he was nominated by Chavez
Right.
to
He was
continue the.
handpicked by Chavez. Yeah.
I know. So we see some of the variants rising in New York, and we are very scared about what is happening. But I want to go back to that question, Astrid. You know, Chavez won through a landslide. How did that happen? And why did we bring Maduro's wife as well? And in this precision operation, not one blood, not one human life was taken, but it was a very precisely planned, magnificent operation by the enforcement in people in our country. Why was Maduro's wife included in that?
Okay, but let me go back. That's a two-part question. The first one, you said that Chavez won in a landslide, or you're talking about Edmundo Gonzalez? I'm a little bit confused.
Chavez, Hugo Chavez.
Yes, the first time that Chavez ran, he won because Chavez wasn't a very effective speaker. He spoke to a segment of the population that was very poor. And he convinced people, hey, I'm your best choice. I think you see, there's a commonality among socialists. They lie a lot. They promise a lot. Everything is going to be free. Transportation is going to be free. Your education is going to be free. Your food is going to be free. So Chavez was very effective at lying to the Venezuelan people so they could vote for them. I know people that today come to me and say, Astrid, what was I thinking voting for this guy? Why was I thinking? But he was very convincing. But as soon as he took power, as soon as he was appointed as the president of Venezuela and he was sworn in, started change the constitution, change the period where you can be president. He expanded the presidency period.
Oh,
He started taking over and seizing private properties. It was very fast. Venezuelans were not prepared for this. Venezuelans became hostage
oh,
to Chavez's operations and to the 21st century socialism, which expanded throughout Latin America. And thank goodness we're seeing a reverse of that. We're seeing other Latin American countries that have gone back to a more central conservative view and they're not going into they're moving away from socialism. So I'm very grateful. I am happy to be alive during this time period in history because I'm seeing this seismic shift taking place in the Western Hemisphere. We're lucky, we're privileged to be able to be witnessing this today.
but tell me
Now,
about the wife, Maduro's wife. Why was
okay,
she?
so
Yes.
I'm so
What
glad you're
role did
asking me
she?
this question because Maduro's wife, Celia, has a long history of corruption, illicit transactions. Her two nephews, which were liberated by the Biden administration, which to this day I don't understand why, were deeply embedded in the illicit drug trading. She herself is the brains behind Maduro. Maduro is not a very smart guy. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but Maduro is not really a brilliant guy. He was a bus driver. He was handpicked by Hugo Chavez because Maduro still is a ruthless person. The thousands of people that have been killed and tortured because of Maduro. His wife is behind him on everything he did. She was involved in illicit activities since she was a young woman, and she's the brains behind this entire thing. So that's why, but you see, she was very strategic and smart. She never talks. She's always by his side, but she's the one really pulling the strings on this entire thing.
Oh.
So, yes, that's why she was taken.
Okay, good. So another question, Astrid. We saw a lot of celebrations and jubilations across the world, but not so within the Venezuelan country. Why? And then also the fact that the American operation was so smooth tells us there was a lot of buy-in from within. So people were on board, whoever who let America carry out the operation. And the third is, I mean, sorry, there's so much to ask you, but can we change the system by taking two people out of the country?
All three questions, excellent questions. So remember when I told you that the tail of the snake is still in Venezuela? Well, that's why you saw all of us around the world celebrating, elated with the news. But those in Venezuela are terrified because Diosdado Cabello, which is the right hand of Maduro and who owns the gun, has the power, has the collective, he runs the colectivos. The colectivos is, do you see those guys on motorcycles carrying guns all over the streets of Caracas? Where these are serious, very violent militias that Diosdado runs. Diosdado is still in Venezuela. So if you're a Venezuelan and you go out of the street and you raise your American flag or Venezuelan flag and you say, thank you, President Trump, they'll kill you. They'll take you to prison. You would stay in prison for God, and they will torture you too as well. So that's why in Venezuela, but I can assure you, Soraya, 99.9% of Venezuelans are elated with the extraction, with the brilliant extraction of Nicolas Maduro. Now, the operation itself requires another 2 hours of conversation because I cannot overstate how impressive the Delta forces, the U.S., our troops, our U.S. military forces, our Navy, the CIA, the DEA, the DEA as well. The work they're doing is extraordinary. I mean, the way they planned this operation, the way they waited for because that was the day that it took place on January the 3rd. It wasn't exactly the day that the operation was planned to take place. It was planned to take place on December 31st. They moved it to January 3rd. And it was performed in such an impeccable way that the United States is doing everything. Our troops are doing everything to protect Venezuelans' lives. And we're so grateful for that. With the people that were killed on the ground were Cuban security forces that were protecting Maduro. But the operation was impeccable, I'm sure many films, many documentaries, this is going to be talked about for generations, the way this operation was done. And again, Venezuelans are incredibly grateful to our troops for the work they're doing. And there was a third question, which was, Soraya?
Can we change by just two people, taking two people out?
Okay, so it was a very risky operation, very risky. As Secretary Rubio said, there's no way, as effective, as powerful the U.S. forces are, there's no way you can extract somebody like Maduro in Celia, and at the same time, exactly during the same minute, seconds, or half hour, extract the other people, because then American lives would be at risk as well. President Trump is doing this in a very strategic manner, very careful, and I have a lot of confidence in in President Trump. I have a lot of confidence in their modus operandi, in their strategy, in our U.S. troops. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but my father-in-law, who I spent many hours with until he passed away last year, he got to 100 years old. He was a Second World War veteran. He was an MIT student. He was recruited by the Navy, and he served during Second World War. And I was so privileged and so lucky to be able to. He's practically lived with us, and I learned to love this country because of him. When he saw the news and he was disappointed about when U.S. sovereignty was being affected or whatever happened, I just looked at his face and I knew, because he lost several friends at the Pearl Harbor attack, and he told me the story, and his eyes would tear up. And that's how I learned to love this country, and that's why I have so much respect for our troops,
Wow.
because of the work they do.
Thank you, Astrid. So now, the demise of the Muslim world began, I say, in 1989 when Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa against Salman Rushdie, where he stifled free speech. And this whole wave of blasphemy erupted in the Muslim world. And we lost our eclectic exploration of our faith and ideas and strategies. So now this particular country that has damaged first the Muslims, first the Islam, and today you can see what they have done. Iran is producing proxy wars, training Hezbollah, training Hamas, training Houthis, and spending 3-digit or 4-digit numbers on this kind of proxy warfare. And when you told a little while ago, Astrid, that Maduro has given Iran land in Venezuela to have arms factories, to produce and to launch their operations, that is alarming. Can you just comment when did this happen, and were the Venezuelans in any way consulted? I'm sure no, but when did this happen?
So this happened, I don't have the exact date, but it happened maybe 2, 3 years ago, where the Maduro regime, again, Maduro is not a president, he is a dictator. When the Maduro regime gave a significant piece of land to the Iranians within, towards the center of Venezuela. I can forward more information to you. I don't have it here with me right now, but imagine how we felt when we heard the news, especially those of us that were very familiar with the proxy Iranian operations in the Western Hemisphere. Very alarming, Soraya, because remember, geopolitically, where is Venezuela? Venezuela is basically just south of Florida, very close to Florida. I think its exact mileage is 1,430 something. Don't quote me on this, but and Venezuela was producing and arming, putting together Iranian armed drones in Venezuela. So when you hear, Soraya, that people tell you, oh, Trump just wants Venezuelan oil. Well, it's a combination of factors. Imagine having Iranian drones, armed drones, very close, less than 2,000 miles away from your territory. And this is one of your biggest enemies, okay? One of your biggest foes. What do you do? What do you do? That's why there's something it's called benign negligence, which happened with previous U.S. administrations. They would look at their backyard, but they didn't do much about it. Now we have a president, we have an administration that say, well, what the hell are we doing? We have these foreign forces here that can attack us any day. Maduro is using migration as hybrid warfare. He empties his prisons, send them all to our border. The open border allowed them to come here. So the worst of the worst was allowed to come into the United States.
By Biden.
By Biden, yes. The previous administration, Biden opened the southern border, basically opened it to everybody. So we still don't know. We still don't know. But Maduro, you see, people think that the refugee crisis in Venezuela was just something that happened. No, it was planned. It was planned by Maduro. They wanted to use migration as hybrid warfare to be able to send bad elements to the U.S., which happened with the Tren de Aragua, which is now a terrorist organization, and other groups. Remember, the cartels are the ones that are running the cartels, like President Trump said, the cartels are running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. So all these bad elements were allowed to come into the U.S. through the southern border, by the previous administration, by the Biden administration. So it's a very serious, as I said, it's a very complex situation that spans decades. We're seeing and the situation is changing by the minute, because I'm basically glued to my phone. Because and now the U.S. Embassy in Venezuela is about to open, which is a welcoming news to all Venezuelans as well. That's
closed?
Big news.
Was it closed? The embassy was closed?
Was closed for 5 years, yes, since 2019. And another good news is that the Russian diplomatic corps has left Venezuela. So we are on the right track here.
Wonderful. Okay. You used the word benign negligence?
It's called benign negligence, which is what some people call the fact that the U.S. in the past really look away from South America.
Yes.
And now this has all this strategy to focus, to pivot towards the Western Hemisphere has changed the history of the world, really. The changes, this is going to help the United States become a safer and more prosperous country.
Right. Even I think one of these I follow this person very deeply. God Saad said suicidal empathy. America has engaged in suicidal empathy with its immigration policies and so
Mhm.
many other policies. As to talk about the bridge, El Puente, the hub for cocaine. Venezuela was the bridge. Uh, El
Yes.
Puente, right? Uh,
So people think Venezuela was producing all this cocaine. What Venezuela was the, let's call it the FedEx of the cocaine and drug illicit trade. That's why you see those boats filled with drugs that have been that have been sunk by the our Navy, by the U.S. Navy, because those boats were taking tons of drugs and to throughout the world. They would go to some of them through Brazil as well. Some of them would go to Europe. Some of them would go to the United States. But between the illicit drug trade, Colombian and Venezuela was the transit of tons of drugs through that were, frankly, they were killing hundreds of thousands of Americans because those drugs would end up in the streets of the fentanyl. China is involved in this as well. We haven't even talked about China. China is another YouTube session here. They have been involved also in the fentanyl, but the Venezuela became the puente, the bridge of all this illicit transactions. How about money laundering? Hezbollah's money laundering. It can go on and on through the car sales trade as well. There's so much
mm,
that. But I wanted to clear a lot of concepts that people. A lot of what you hear in the news is not exactly accurate. As a Venezuelan, I can tell you that my presentation was as accurate that I could, and as simple, not simple as not as complicated as I could
mm.
make, because I get phone calls every day. People really don't understand why Maduro is or was the one of the biggest threat to the Western Hemisphere.
Wow. Okay. Now we know this 9 million Venezuelans left, and they're refugees. And today, Venezuela, you said $3 a
A
day,
month,
a
a month,
month.
a
Oh my,
month.
poorer than Syria, I am told. How did they live as was it an exodus? Did they live in batches? And where
You
did they go
cannot
to
leave. You cannot leave. I mean, the people in Venezuela went hungry. There was a food operation, like El CLAP, which is another big illegal operation that took place, where the socialist regime would give boxes of food to the people, would buy the allegiances through food. The food was rotten. The milk was rotten. They were feeding. They were feeding the babies. They were feeding dirt. It was that's another issue that we can talk about for a long time. And an individual called Alex Saab, also released by the previous administration, was responsible for this. They money launder so much through this different operations that they were doing. Venezuelans, we have a generation of Venezuelans that uh, went hungry mentally, physically. The children are deprived of so much. Some of them are not even growing anymore. It's a very sad situation, Soraya. Very sad. And when you think of the irony of all of this, Venezuelan sits above over the largest crude oil reserves in the world, even more than Saudi Arabia. So
yes.
think about that. So we are so hopeful that business will come back to Venezuela. The oil industry would be repaired and reactivated, because that's another thing. The Maduro and the Chavez regimes destroy the oil infrastructure. I'm talking about the infrastructure,
Mm,
stole precious minerals, destroy the Amazons with this illegal gold mining. And there's so much more. A country that was the most stable democracy went on a down spiral and was destroyed in less than 20 years. And it's something we should think about, Soraya, because you can never take away your freedoms, and the values. Where democracy is not a perfect system, but hey, it's the best we have. Like, who said that? Churchill? Margaret Thatcher, I cannot remember, but one of them said that it's the best that we have and we have to protect it.
And in 2023, now people talk about America wanting the land and wanting the oil. In 2023, when Maduro led a referendum to take over Guyana, nobody spoke anything about it.
Oh, they will be talking about it because Guyana is not very happy about it.
Yes.
There's a territory that has been under dispute for a long time. And the Guyana government, well, they're not very happy about it. They're also collaborating. Their leadership is very strongly collaborating with the U.S. because they've also been victim of a lot of the activities that Maduro is doing, of this illicit drug trade. So yes, they are collaborating with the U.S. government. It's a very complicated issue that has been taking place for decades, but that is something that it's one step at a time. We have to trust the process.
Yeah.
Right now, as I said, the head of the snake is being extracted from Venezuela. The tail of the snake is still there. When those issues are taken care of, we can talk about the rest right now, but it's a very complex, multidimensional situation.
Astrid, you still have members of your family in Venezuela?
I have members of my family everywhere around the world, not much in Venezuela, but a lot of the people, as I said, over 8 million Venezuelans left the country because of the situation. But I can promise you something, a lot of them want to come back. They want to come back. They love their country. They want to make Venezuela a prosperous country again, an ally of the United States. And I truly believe that we should make Venezuela great again, for sure.
Okay, thank you. So what message do you have for the Americans before we, may that be our last question? Our time is up.
Well, the first message is thank you to our U.S. troops for the work they've done in Venezuela. Thank you, President Trump, Marco Rubio, Peter Hegseth, John Ratcliffe. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for liberating Venezuela from this scourge, from this 27-year dictatorship. That's number one. Number two, please repeat after me, Maduro is not the president of Venezuela. Okay, we have a legitimate president. His name is Edmundo Gonzalez. Alongside our Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado, they were able to win the last legitimate election in Venezuela. And thirdly, God bless the United States for caring for our hemisphere, for bringing back the Monroe Doctrine, for protecting our mineral resources, our oil, and for remembering that America first is also the Americas first.
Wow. Thank you, Astrid. I am just blown away by your knowledge, your expertise. And this is not hearsay. This is your first-hand information. You are a Venezuelan. And I'm so glad for our friendship. And I know we are going to see each other in Malta in March.
Yes.
And
yes.
you, together with your friend Shireen, are going to advance peace in the MENA region, bringing the Abraham alliances together. If you want to give a message on that or post the link, we would be.
Thank you. My goodness. Thank you for that. Yes, we're going to be hosting a beautiful interfaith conference. We're bringing the Abrahamic faiths together in the beautiful island of Malta from March 1st to March the 3rd. And you're all welcome to join me. Our website is Abraham Women Alliance. And you can go to the website. There's a special tab just for the Malta Conference Summit, and I hope you can join us because we have limited space and it's filling up. So please go to our website, Abraham Women Alliance Malta Summit. You will find us there, and I hope to see you in Malta. Thank you, Soraya. Thank you, Anila, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for your valuable time, and to our listeners, thank you for listening in, and we'll see you next Friday with Muslim Women Speak Friday Forum, where we bring you cutting-edge information